From changing geographics to cultural shifts, the global map will continue to change. Join us as we explore 7 new countries that might exist soon in the near future, each with a tale of identity and vision of its own. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos. Coming in at number 7 is AZAWAD. This potential new country might end up taking about 60% of the Mali territory. However, the declaration for an independent country of AZAWAD was not accepted by Mali. And so, in the year of 2013, the movement declared its claim for independence and requested the Malian government to put forth negotiations. Nevertheless, the authors of the opinion article had already predicted the failure of AZAWAD emerging into an independent country. They claimed so because this could only be the origin of a Berber nationalism that is within the African reigns, as they hold various ethnicities varying from each other collectively, known as Berber or Tuareg origins, who could potentially start a rebellion of their own for an independent country for each minor ethnic group. Despite not having any significant improvement over 10 plus years, this could definitely change in the 2030s or in the far future as protecting each ethnicity becomes of significant importance. Next up on our list of potential countries that are likely to exist soon is New Caledonia, a legal overseas territory controlled by France. This island is located in the Pacific and is more than 62,000 miles away from France. The Metropolitan France took over New Caledonia in 1853, and since then, numerous European, Polynesian, and other populations have moved to this island, making it a group of various ethnicities. The population in the island comprises of 41% indigenous Kanak, 24% Europeans, and 35% Polynesians, as along with other ethnic groups. But the indigenous Kanak were excluded during the French colonial rule in the 19th and 20th century, and ultimately confined to minority reservations. In the 1970s, the independence movement and struggle began increasing among Kanak people who were simply done with lower economic status in relation to European settlers in the island. The movement adopted violent measures eventually, and one of the most violent incidents took place in 1988 when a group of armed Kanak independent fighters attacked a French military outpost, assassinating 4 military officers while holding about 36 people, including civilians, as hostage. The bloody incident resulted in a 10-year truce to secure stability on the island, and in 2018, New Caledonia was offered 3 different referendums, which were rejected with a majority of 56, which voted to remain under France. The movement lost its hope as the COVID pandemic hit, and it seems like in the near future, New Caledonia is still likely to be under France. But there is still hope as a 3rd referendum is still in the process, maybe sometime in the future. On the western side of the map lies the region of Western New Guinea. Like the eastern part of independent Papua New Guinea, and the western half of New Guinea is currently under control of the Indonesian government. This region of Western New Guinea is considered to be one of the most backward and underdeveloped regions in the modern world. Home to almost 5.6 million residents, this mountainous and jungly region makes it difficult to connect, and is considering that about 40 tribes reside in the deeper part who have no connection whatsoever with the outside world. The Western New Guinea initially remained under Dutch control and wished to turn it into a self-governing territory, but Indonesia fiercely opposed it since they were considered the direct successors of all territories of Dutch East Indies. In 1961, the Dutch decided to grant Western New Guinea its freedom, but due to opposition by Indonesia, it came under the regulation of the UN and was later transferred to Indonesia. Finally, in 1969, a referendum was made open, but with a slight twist. The government only chose a selected group of representatives to vote, and they unanimously voted to remain under Indonesia. The freedom movement involved violence, and today even holding up a Morning Star flag is considered treason. So an independent Western New Guinea is far away from reach, but maybe someday in the future it could happen. So be sure to subscribe and watch for more such videos so you'll find out if it does happen. Another nation that is more likely to gain independence is Greenland, an autonomous territory under the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark acquired the region of Greenland from Norway in 1814, and since then Greenland has been incorporated into a Danish region. All the Danish residents were granted citizenship, and by 1979, a referendum was passed on home rule. And years later, in 2008, further referendum to increase the region's self-governance was also approved by a majority of 75% voters. This was made successful by transferring most of the responsibilities of Denmark, except monetary policies and defense, to the local Greenland government. While the landscape of Greenland is vast, the population contradicts it. Only about 57,000 people reside, and most of them are ethnically Inuits. The Denmark government provided Greenland with a referendum that they can act on any day to gain full independence, but the high amount of subsidy paid to them is what makes them hesitate. but the rising vote for independence could make it happen someday. Number 3 on our list is Quebec. While all the territories of Caledonia and Greenland have the potential of becoming a separate sovereign state someday, that is not the case for this region. Far in the Western Hemisphere is the nation heavily trying to become separate, Quebec. Out of the 9 million population in Quebec, the majority of 78% are French speakers, thereby making it their official language. This French-dominated region is a unique area that is surrounded by the vast majority of English speakers of America. This caused a sense of isolation and nationalism among the French speakers, and this feeling of nationalism hit its peak during the 1980s, when the region held 2 referendums from their independence from Canada. The first one took place in 1980, which resulted in 85% of the community electing to remain with Canada, and the second one, which took place after 15 years in 1995, resulted in the most controversial referendum. This movement had the active participation of literally every resident in the province, and it turned out to be the largest voting turnout of all of Quebec's history. However, Canada won the battle by a hairline gap. The hope for a separate nation has faded away, but is never completely lost. Number 2 on our list is Kurdish. Somewhere in the Middle East lies a region fighting for its independence, the Kurdish state. This area is home to about 30 to 45 million ethnically Kurd citizens who are spread through the borders of Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Iraq. They are known to be the largest stateless people to ever exist in the 21st century. The collective government, like always, is opposed to the idea of an independent state emerging. The reason being that if the Kurdish state ever decides to become independent, it would affect the rest of the territories and might eventually be taken down by the Kurdish state. But what we consider the sole reason for the disapproval is the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates River, as well as the rich oil fields that the Kurdish state would inhabit, making it a prominent region in comparison to the 4 territories that share borders with the Kurdish state. Since all the 4 nations are against the independence of the Kurdish state, it might actually not happen in the near future. The concept of the Basque country spreads through the world map. Last but not least, our final country in the pursuit of its own independent region is the country of Basque. The landscape of Basque extends through the borders of France and Spain up until the western edge of their border. About 3 million people currently reside in this region, and the majority of them are more inclined to the Spanish side. The language spoken by the Basque resident is rather unique and outstands most of the European context. Despite being banned and repressed in Spain during the Francoist era, it is the only Paleo-European that is traditionally spoken to this day. This language does not correlate with any other existing European language and remains steadfast as the sole language that is rare and unmatched. The independence trials of Basque involves violence wherein thousands of civilians were either injured or assassinated by militant separatist organizations known as ETA. The ETA is identified as a terrorist organization by France, Spain, US, and UK. Millions of civilians remain proof of the violent bombings and assassinations that took place in Spain for the Republic of the Basque Nation. The violent war is known as the longest-standing Western war to ever exist, and ultimately came to an end in 2011. And 7 years later, separatist ETA organization disbanded themselves. Despite all these violent struggles, there has been no independence referendum whatsoever for the region of Basque, but the desire for an independent nation has only shown a steady increase over the years. The vote for independence held at the University of Basque proves this very point. In the 2010 poll, only 30% of Basques supported independence, while others chose not to, but in the year 2011, the percentage increased to 32% who had supported independence of Basque. In the near future, maybe Basque could see itself as an independent nation that can uphold its traditions, language, and culture, but no more violence, maybe. While there are many regions fighting for their cause and beliefs, not each country can have its own freedom, but the struggle for a sovereign state never ends. Which region do you think will be the next independent country on the horizon? Drop down your thoughts in the comment section below. And while you're at it, check out this video going into 5 more new countries that might exist soon.